It was a crisp autumn day when I first suspected that something was amiss. My name is John, and I had been married to Laura for 15 years. We lived in a quaint suburb in Illinois, where the streets were lined with tall oak trees, and the neighbors were friendly enough to nod and wave, but not intrusive enough to pry into your personal business. We had 2 children, Max and Emily, who were both in high school. I worked as an IT consultant for a mid-sized firm in downtown Chicago. It wasn't a dream job, but it paid the bills and provided a comfortable life for my family. Laura was a stay-at-home mom, a role she had chosen after Emily was born. She said she wanted to be there for the kids, to watch them grow and to ensure they had a stable upbringing. I respected that, even admired it. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a text message. I had come home from work earlier than usual that day. My boss, Rick, had given me the afternoon off after we wrapped up a big project. I was looking forward to surprising Laura and maybe even taking her out for a late lunch. As I pulled into our driveway, I noticed her car was parked at an odd angle, almost as if she had rushed home. When I walked in, the house was unusually quiet. The kids were still at school, so I called out for Laura. There was no response. I found her in the kitchen, staring intently at her phone. She didn't notice me at first, so I stood there for a moment, observing. Her face was a mix of worry and something else I couldn't quite place. Then she looked up and saw me. "Oh, John, you startled me," she said, quickly locking her phone and slipping it into her pocket. "Sorry, didn't mean to," I replied. "Got off work early and thought we could spend some time together." "That sounds nice," she said, but her voice lacked enthusiasm. I didn't think much of it at the time. We went out to a nearby cafe, but Laura seemed distracted, constantly glancing at her phone and offering forced smiles. I chalked it up to her having an off day. Little did I know it was the beginning of the end. A few weeks later, things started to unravel further. Laura began making excuses to leave the house more often. She joined a new book club that met twice a week, started going to yoga classes, and even signed up for a pottery class. I was happy that she was finding hobbies and socializing, but something felt off. She was more distant, both emotionally and physically. Our conversations became shorter, and she often seemed lost in thought. One evening, as I was working late in my home office, I heard Laura's phone buzzing incessantly in the living room. She was upstairs, putting the kids to bed, so I decided to take a look. I wasn't usually the type to invade her privacy, but curiosity got the better of me. The screen showed a series of messages from a contact named Steve. I opened the messages and my heart sank. There were flirty exchanges, plans to meet up, and even a few explicit messages. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and confusion. Who was this Steve? How long had this been going on? I decided to confront Laura that night. After the kids were asleep, I approached her in our bedroom. "Laura, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me, a hint of apprehension in her eyes. "What is it, John? I saw the messages on your phone." "Who is Steve?" Her face paled, and she looked away. "He's just a friend," she muttered. "Just a friend? Those messages didn't look like something you'd send to just a friend." She sighed and sat down on the edge of the bed. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having an affair." There was a long pause. She seemed to be gathering her thoughts. "John, I'm sorry. It's complicated." "Complicated?" "Laura, either you're cheating on me or you're not. There's no middle ground here." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never meant for it to happen. It just did." Dear viewers, more than 90% watch my content without subscribing. If you still have not subscribed, then I ask you to do so. For me, this is the best motivation to continue. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "A few months," she admitted. The room seemed to spin and I had to sit down. A few months? How had I missed the signs? What had I done to drive her into another man's arms? "Why?" I managed to ask. "I don't know," she said, her voice breaking. "I was lonely and he was there. It just happened. I wanted to scream, to shout at her, but I didn't. I just sat there, numb. The woman I had loved and trusted for 15 years had betrayed me. I felt a deep, aching void in my chest. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions at work, barely able to concentrate. Rick noticed and asked if everything was okay. I gave him a vague answer, not wanting to air my dirty laundry at the office. At home, things were tense. Laura and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was only about the kids or household matters. One evening, I decided I needed to get out of the house. I went to a local bar, a small place I used to frequent before I got married. It was dimly lit, with a worn-out pool table and a jukebox that played classic rock. I ordered a beer and sat at the bar, lost in my thoughts. After a while, a man sat down next to me. He looked to be in his late 40s, with a rugged face and a weary expression. He ordered a whiskey and struck up a conversation. "You look like you've had a rough day," he said, taking a sip of his drink. "You could say that," I replied, not really in the mood for small talk. "Want to talk about it?" he asked. I hesitated. "It's a long story." "I've got time," he said, turning to face me. "Name's Mike, by the way." "John," I said, shaking his hand. We talked for a while, and I found myself opening up to him. There was something about his demeanor that put me at ease. I told him about Laura, about the messages, and about how I felt lost and betrayed. "Cheating is a tough pill to swallow," Mike said. "I've been there myself. My ex-wife cheated on me with a coworker. It tore me apart. I'm sorry to hear that," I said, feeling a strange kinship with this stranger. "Thanks. It was a long time ago, but it still stings. The best advice I can give you is to focus on yourself. Figure out what you want and need, and go from there." His words stuck with me. I realized I had been so focused on Laura and the kids that I had neglected myself. I needed to take a step back and reevaluate my life. I started going to the gym, something I hadn't done in years. I found it therapeutic, a way to channel my anger and frustration. I also started reading again, something I used to love but had pushed aside due to the demands of work and family life. Slowly, I began to rediscover myself. Meanwhile, Laura and I continued to live in a state of limbo. We attended couples therapy, but it was clear that the damage was done. The trust was shattered, and no amount of counseling could repair it. We decided to separate, and I moved into a small apartment nearby. We agreed to share custody of the kids, and I did my best to make the transition as smooth as possible for them. Max and Emily took the news hard. They were old enough to understand what was happening, but it didn't make it any easier. I tried to be there for them, to reassure them that we still loved them, and that none of this was their fault. It was a difficult time, but we got through it together. As the months passed, I began to heal. I focused on my job, my kids, and myself. I reconnected with old friends, and even made some new ones. Life wasn't perfect, but it was getting better. One day I received a call from an old college friend, Dave. He had recently moved back to the area and wanted to catch up. We met for lunch at a diner we used to frequent during our college days. It was good to see him, and we spent hours reminiscing about the past. "So, how's life treating you?" Dave asked, taking a sip of his coffee. "It's been a roller coaster," I admitted, "but I'm getting through it." "I heard about Laura," he said, his voice filled with sympathy. "I'm sorry, man." "Thanks. It's been tough, but I'm moving on." "Good to hear. Listen, I have a proposition for you. My company is looking for an IT manager, and I think you'd be a great fit. It's a bit of a commute, but the pay is good, and it's a solid opportunity." I was intrigued. "Tell me more." Dave explained that his company, a growing tech firm, was expanding and needed someone with my skills and experience. It sounded like a great opportunity, and I was ready for a change. I applied for the job, and after a series of interviews, I was offered the position. The new job brought a fresh start. The commute was long, but I didn't mind. It gave me time to think, to plan, and to reflect. I threw myself into my work, determined to prove myself and to build a new life. As I settled into my new role, I began to notice a change in myself. I was more confident, more assertive. I was no longer the same man who had been blindsided by his wife's betrayal. I had grown stronger, more resilient. One evening, after a long day at work, I stopped by a local bookstore. I had always loved reading, and I found solace in the rows of books, the smell of paper and ink. As I browsed the shelves, I noticed a woman standing nearby, engrossed in a novel. She had a kind face and a warm smile. Our eyes met, and we struck up a conversation. Her name was Sarah, and she was a school teacher. We talked about books, about life, and about the challenges we had both faced. There was an instant connection, a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. We exchanged numbers and agreed to meet for coffee. Sarah and I began seeing each other regularly. She was patient, understanding, and compassionate. She knew about my past, and she never judged me for it. Instead, she supported me, encouraged me, and helped me heal. As our relationship blossomed, I realized that I had found something special. Sarah was everything I had been missing in my life. She brought joy, laughter, and love back into my world. The kids adored her, and she embraced them as if they were her own. We became a family, one built on trust, respect, and love. It wasn't always easy, but we faced the challenges together. Looking back, I realized that Laura's betrayal, as painful as it was, had ultimately led me to a better place. It had forced me to confront my own shortcomings, to grow, and to become a better person. It had led me to Sarah, to a new job, and to a new life. I had learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. That sometimes, the worst experiences can lead to the best outcomes, and that true happiness comes not from avoiding pain, but from facing it head-on and emerging stronger on the other side. As I sat on the porch of our new home, watching the sunset with Sarah by my side, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I had never known before. Life had come full circle, and I was grateful for every twist and turn that had brought me here. Life after the betrayal was a journey, and though I had found a semblance of peace, the road ahead was still filled with its share of challenges and triumphs. One of the most significant changes came with my new job. Working at Dave's company, Nextech Innovations, was a refreshing change of pace from my previous position. The company was vibrant, filled with young talent and innovative ideas. I was the new IT manager, overseeing a team of bright and ambitious individuals. The work was demanding but fulfilling. I was responsible for overseeing the company's entire IT infrastructure, ensuring that our systems ran smoothly and securely. This involved everything from managing the network and servers to overseeing cybersecurity measures and implementing new technologies. It was a role that required both technical expertise and leadership skills, and I thrived on the challenge. The team was diverse and energetic. There was Mike, a recent graduate with a knack for coding and a passion for cybersecurity. He reminded me of myself when I was younger, eager to prove myself and make a mark in the industry. Then there was Lisa, a seasoned network engineer who had a no-nonsense attitude and a wealth of experience. She was my right hand, someone I could always rely on to get things done. And there was also Alex, a creative thinker who always came up with innovative solutions to complex problems. Working at Nextech Innovations was like being part of a big, extended family. We celebrated our successes together and supported each other through the tough times. The company's culture was one of collaboration and mutual respect, something that I greatly appreciated. It was a stark contrast to the corporate environment of my previous job, where everything was about numbers and profits. As I settled into my new role, I began to notice a change in my personal life as well. Sarah and I grew closer, and our relationship deepened. She was my rock, my confidant, and my best friend. She had a way of making everything seem better, even on the toughest days. Her kindness and understanding were a balm to my wounded heart. Max and Emily adjusted to the new dynamics of our family with remarkable resilience. They both adored Sarah, and she had a natural way with them. She helped Max with his math homework and attended Emily's school plays. Dear viewers, I ask you to subscribe to the channel under this video. I will be very grateful to you. Cheering her on from the front row. We made it a point to have regular family dinners, where we would catch up on each other's lives and share stories and laughter. One evening, as we were having dinner, Max brought up a topic that took me by surprise. "Dad, are you ever going to marry Sarah?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. I looked at Sarah, who smiled warmly. "We haven't really talked about it, buddy," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Emily chimed in, "Yeah, I think it would be great if you did. Sarah makes you happy, and she's awesome." I felt a lump in my throat. It was true. Sarah did make me happy. She had brought light into my life when I was surrounded by darkness. But the idea of marriage was something I hadn't fully considered yet. After the kids went to bed, Sarah and I sat on the porch, sipping wine and enjoying the cool evening breeze. "Did you hear what the kids said earlier?" Sarah asked, breaking the comfortable silence. "Yeah," I replied, smiling. "They have a way of getting straight to the point, don't they?" She laughed. "They do, But they have a point. We've been together for a while now, and I think we've built something really special. I agree, I said, taking her hand in mine. I never thought I'd find love again after everything that happened with Laura. But you've changed my life, Sarah. She looked at me, her eyes filled with warmth and love. And you've changed mine, John. I can't imagine my life without you and the kids. As we sat there, I realized that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Sarah. She had been my anchor through the storm, and I knew that together we could face whatever life threw our way. A few weeks later, I planned a special evening. I took Sarah to a beautiful restaurant by the lake, one that she had mentioned wanting to visit. The setting was perfect. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the water, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees. After dinner, we took a walk along the shore. The moment felt right, and I turned to her, taking her hands in mine. Sarah, you've brought so much joy and love into my life. I can't imagine my future without you. Will you marry me? Her eyes filled with tears, and she smiled the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. Yes, John. Yes, I will. We hugged, and as we stood there by the lake, I felt a sense of completeness that I had never known before. The journey that began with betrayal and heartache had led me to this moment of profound happiness and hope. The news of our engagement was met with excitement and joy from both our families and friends. Max and Emily were thrilled, and they immediately began planning the wedding in their minds, suggesting everything from the venue to the menu. Sarah and I decided on a small, intimate wedding with close family and friends. We chose a charming vineyard a few hours outside of Chicago, a place surrounded by rolling hills and lush vineyards. It was a perfect setting for our special day. On a warm summer day, under a canopy of grapevines and with the sun shining brightly, we exchanged our vows. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in our lives, one filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. The wedding was a beautiful celebration of our love and commitment to each other. Max and Emily played significant roles in the ceremony. Max was the ring bearer, and Emily was a bridesmaid. Their smiles and laughter added a special touch to the day. As we danced under the stars that night, surrounded by our loved ones, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had taken me on a tumultuous journey, but it had led me to a place of happiness and fulfillment. In the years that followed, Sarah and I continued to build our life together. We moved into a larger house, one with enough space for the kids to grow and for us to create new memories. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with raising teenagers. Max and Emily thrived in the new environment. Max developed a passion for computers and technology, following in my footsteps. He spent hours in his room, building and programming, and I couldn't have been prouder. Emily, on the other hand, discovered her love for the arts. She excelled in theater and painting, and we supported her every step of the way. Sarah continued to teach, and her dedication to her students was unwavering. She often brought her work home, and we would spend evenings grading papers together, sharing stories about our day. One of the most memorable moments came when Sarah suggested we take a family trip to Europe. It was something we had talked about for years, but life always seemed to get in the way. With the kids growing up fast, we decided it was time to make it happen. We planned an elaborate trip, visiting several countries over the course of a month. We started in England, exploring the historic streets of London, visiting museums, and taking in a West End show. From there, we traveled to France, where we marveled at the beauty of Paris, climbed the Eiffel Tower, and savored delicious pastries. Italy was next on our list, and it did not disappoint. We wandered through the ancient ruins of Rome, sailed through the canals of Venice, and enjoyed the breathtaking views of the Amalfi Coast. Each day was an adventure, and the shared experiences brought us even closer together as a family. The trip was a resounding success, and it left us with memories that would last a lifetime. It was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had overcome together. Back home, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Sarah and I continued to support each other in our careers, and we always made time for date nights and family outings. Our bond grew stronger with each passing year, and I knew that I had found a partner for life. One evening, As we were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain and betrayal of the past seemed like a distant memory, overshadowed by the love and happiness that now filled my life. "Do you ever think about the past?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but not with regret. It's part of what brought us here, to this moment." She nodded, her hand resting on mine. "I'm grateful for every step of the journey, even the difficult ones. They've made us who we are." "I couldn't agree more," I said, pulling her close. "Here's to the future, to new adventures, and to us." As the sun dipped below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I had never known before. Life was unpredictable, but with Sarah by my side, I knew that we could face anything together. Our story was one of resilience, love, and second chances. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of the human spirit. And as we sat there, enveloped in the warmth of the evening, I knew that our journey was far from over. There were still many chapters to be written, and I looked forward to every single one of them with hope and anticipation.